First thing we do on this show is we play Dicey Questions. So I've got 8 questions here, and I roll the die on that dice tower 3 times. Those are the 3 questions we at least start with.
Getting your first roll here.
Got a 1. Can you give us 1 audition high and 1 audition low?
Okay, well, I haven't really booked that much, so I guess the audition high would be booking Spenser Confidential. That was a good audition where I did it once and I nailed it. Oh God, an audition low. Actually, it was like last week. Oh God, and I can't believe I said this. I was auditioning and I chose to do a Southern accent because regionally I thought it makes sense. And the director goes, I'm just not sure why you're doing a Southern accent. This takes place, and it was South Florida. And I was like, have you ever been to South Florida? And he was like, yes, many times. And I don't hear that accent. Like, and I was just like, Iliza, why did you say like, how, like I'm challenging him? Because as if I like live there. And I was just like, oh, you could have definitely softened that. Didn't get it. Didn't want it, but didn't get it.
We got number 3, filming 101. What is a seemingly silly question that you might have been afraid to ask on your very first film set?
What are we doing? You get there and you're like, I'm like, sometimes they just put you in, especially if it's like a chaotic day. And you're like, I'm sorry, where do I look? Where's the camera? Very basic questions, like what's happening?
I have a 5. Oh, this is silly, but I've gotten obsessed with this. It's zombie apocalypse. For whatever reason, I have a habit now of asking everybody how they would do in a zombie apocalypse. So that's my question to you right now. If there was a zombie apocalypse tomorrow, do you think you had any chance of surviving?
Yeah, I think I have 100% chance of surviving. I sleep with bear spray by my bed. I think you saw the kidnap scene in this movie. I know a lot of weird medical facts. I have an earthquake survival kit here because we live in California. And I'm very good at coming down to like him or me and just like going shark black in the eyes and getting something done. So I will be queen of this land.
You have an earthquake survival kit for your dog.
Does she have one? Let's see. No, she's just made of meat. She doesn't she would not survive.
She's adorable. I can't get enough of her.
She is not a predator.
I do not have my own earthquake survival kit, but I do have one for this guy right here. Hello, everyone. I'm Perry Nemerov. This is Iliza Shlesinger. You are watching Collider Ladies Night. We have hit game number 2.
Okay.
We're going to build you another reality show competition to participate in. There are a whole bunch of questions. The first one is, you get the chance to compete in the reality TV show of your choice. What show do you pick and why?
Okay, this is a very honest answer and I hope they're watching. It would be being a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race. I've watched every season. I'm very invested. Put me on the show.
If you had to play in one, actually compete,
All right.
What would you be good at?
What am I good at?
Cooking.
Cooking. But okay, yeah. If there was a show about wives of chefs who actually don't love cooking, I bet I'd win. Because I think I've absorbed enough information from my brilliant husband that I could do it.
So you get on this show, you're going to compete in it. You have the opportunity to bring a teammate, but that teammate has to be a co-star you worked with before. Who are you bringing?
My husband, we do a cooking show called Don't Panic Pantry. Ever since quarantine, we've done over 200 episodes. That is my golden ticket.
What is your secret weapon for winning this contest?
My husband. Taking my husband's ideas and then making them like really funny and like relatable and vulnerable.
How about this? What is your team weakness? What is the one thing that'll trip you up and maybe mess up the competition for you?
Me. I have no patience. I get really bored and I don't want to prep anything. And I am the kind of person that will rip the top off an avocado and just squeeze it. I don't want to use a utensil. I'm so lazy.
Nothing fascinates me more than the production process on a reality TV competition show. So what is one thing about that production process that made you say, like, I cannot believe this is what you have to do to make a reality TV show?
Well, it was actually sort of the inverse of that. This is in the heyday of reality TV. This is around like Rock of Love and like The Girls Next Door and like that type. And I watched a lot of it. So going into that show, I knew what not to do. And what you don't do is give anything incriminating, and you don't talk shit on the other people, and you don't go into a confessional to vent. I knew how these things were edited. I didn't want to give them a reason to make the cute blonde girl a bad guy. And I didn't want to ever devote any of my stage time to talking about someone else. Because the second you mention someone else's name, they cut to B-roll of them. So all the garbage TV I watched actually served me quite well.
That's really impressive. I've never heard anyone answer that question with an eye for editing.
Yeah, editing is probably the most important thing in comedy, in art. Without your edit, you're garbage.
The other part of reality competition shows that fascinates me is what happens after you win, because I love me some American Idol and similar shows, but there are so many times where I watch someone go on and win and everyone's familiar with them then, but
Right.
then that's pretty much the last you see or hear from them. So what was the key for you to being a winner and then translating that win into a full-blown career?
It's a choice. It's a choice. You are given this moment and this energy, and you can sink or swim, and you can rest on your laurels, or you can use that as a jumping off point. So I just kept working. I just kept writing and kept going on the road, and you're auditioning, you're doing whatever, but I just kept moving forward. And I never wanted to be the person that did that one thing that you never heard from. And I love stand up so much, and I've grown so much in my point of view. It just kept feeding itself and progressing. So it was a choice to not fade away. It was a choice I had to fight for.
So when did you start auditioning for films and television?
I have been auditioning. I auditioned for Community. I auditioned for The Hangover. That was a poor casting choice, but I've been auditioning at a really high level for a very long time. And I have so much respect for actors because you need permission from several people to practice that craft. And stand up, I can just get up. I don't even need a microphone sometimes, but I've been at it a very long time. I've been tanking auditions for a very long time.
Getting into Good on Paper now, with the writing process, what would you say is the biggest difference between gauging the likelihood of a joke landing on stage versus in a screenplay? Do any of your techniques for connecting with a live audience carry over when you're writing a script?
At this point in stand-up, I have a very good grasp of timing, cadence, delivery. This is stuff this speaks to the craft versus just structural joke telling, right? We all know the way a knock-knock joke should sound. We all know the way a good story should sound, but there is like a math behind it. So you apply that. And also I am the one delivering these jokes. So I know how I would deliver a joke. So it's something that I wonder sometimes if writers do. I will say the joke out loud. And Andrea, at the beginning, I kind of poke fun at the audition process because she reads this thing that's written so weirdly in her audition. And she's like, you shouldn't say it this many times. It should be a rule of 3. And they're just like, you're a dumb girl. Who cares? So I was very committed to making sure it all flowed comedically, but then very open to, at the table read on the day, being okay with cutting it or adding an adjective or a word because maybe it isn't as funny as I thought it was when I was alone, or maybe that person has something else that makes it, we're delivering it a different way and we need to adjust it. So being confident in your writing, but being okay with pivoting.
There's tons of outrageous laugh out loud comedy in it, but it's also got a real streak of sincerity to it too. And I don't think we see that balance that well that often. So with that in mind, are there any particular scenes in the film that required a similar amount of workshopping just to make sure that you had that and you were maintaining both things strongly throughout?
I don't know if it was workshopping as much as just mindfulness on the page. You think about when Andrea and Margot have that fight, wanting to keep it brief because we all know they're going to make up and we all know she's going to listen to Margot. So we didn't want to draw it out with like a montage. Keeping it grounded and keeping these things honest and bringing that vulnerability, always think, first of all, this did happen. So I could always reference the source material, but wanting to make sure that we were being authentic in the way that women do speak to each other. That is how my best friend and I speak to each other. It's not candy coated. We're not like slap tickling. We're not like, what up, girlfriend? Like, it's very blunt. And I don't know if that's because my best friend is queer or because I wanted Margaret to be that. There's a bluntness to it, like we're sisters. We're not just like dumb girls. And I was very mindful this is a really sad story that happened to a very normal, strong woman. And so I was mindful the whole time. How do we make sure that the audience likes her? And unfortunately, as a woman, you do have to think about that, even though I'm like, I was just living my life. She's just living her life, paying her way through life, working hard. And he sought to disrupt that. So making vulnerable choices gives her texture, because I think it's so easy to vilify a woman who, God forbid, stands on her own 2 feet and has her own thoughts in her head. And I didn't want that to happen to her.
Given how you described the true experience, what was it like revisiting it through film?
The writing of it was extremely cathartic. So this happened around 2015, and I started quietly writing this as a process, as a cathartic process for about 2 years. And that was before I'd met the producer who would eventually produce this. But the further away, and I'm a healthy person, and I made a choice after it happened. I was like, I'm not going to pay this forward to anyone. And I do choose to trust people. This is a freak thing. Even though this happens to a lot of people, this is a freak thing. So I was very honest with people that I dated, like, hey, my cage kind of got rattled. I'm a little weird and I'm fine. I've been married for 3 years. He's cool. He's the best. But the writing was cathartic. And of course, when you're writing it, I'm like, this is a revenge rom-com. This is for the ending is so people feel vindicated if they've ever been screwed over unjustly. But I don't feel any of those things now. I've worked through it so much that now, and I can say this honestly from the highest light, I don't even care if Dennis Kelly ever sees it. This isn't about his reaction. This isn't about the man's reaction to what happened to the woman. This is about her story. And when I think of that story now, I picture Ryan Hansen and Margaret Cho and Kimmy Gatewood. Like I think of the movie, not the original pain.
I have a feeling a lot of people are going to watch this movie and there's going to be certain parts where they're going to think to themselves, this could never happen. That's ridiculous. Sure. What is something that might make someone say that, but you could say like, no, this was legit. This is how it went down.
You know, I definitely have watched things where, you know, like some girls like, I'm in a cult, it could happen to you. And I tried to be, I was just like, no way, what is wrong with you? But then I was like, but this happened to me. Here's what I will say, because it's very easy and it's okay because I put it out there for judgment. Like this art is no longer mine. It belongs to you guys. And I hope it sparks a conversation. I hope some people find her likable. Some don't, some believe it, some don't. Because that means we did our job. But it's because he lied about things that nobody really lies about that he passed for so long. He didn't come out with lies about how much money he had and horses and castles. And we weren't in a relationship. So, you know, all the songs, hip hop and country and everything's about someone who cheats on you. Movies are about cheaters. These are the things that we're inculcated to sort of look out for. In the first 5 minutes you meet someone, they tell you where they're from, maybe where they went to school, what they do, maybe where they live. We're not conditioned to question these things because nobody lies about them. So it was about amassing tons of tiny lies that built a character versus big lies that might make a red flag. So there were no red flags.
One more question on Good on Paper before we move on. Yeah. Why didn't you end up calling the movie Cuttlefish?
I tried, Perry. I tried. That scene I wrote way later, like days before we shot it. And I said, it'll be a new type of catfish. You'll see. And marketing didn't like it. And so Cuttlefish was what I wanted.
Admittedly, the only reason I'm aware of Cuttlefish, this is going to sound ridiculous, is because it's part of what makes an Indominus Rex in Jurassic World. And I'm obsessed with Jurassic Park.
That is so funny.
I would have gotten it.
You would have gotten it. Very Sneaky Fish. Prior to that, the working title for a long time, it was just called Dennis Kelly Didn't Go to Yale. And then it was called Play It As It Lies. And we were like, we'll figure it out later. And I said Cuttlefish, and we wrote this scene. And then it was too late we already locked it. So we couldn't take the Cuttlefish scene out, but I still thought it was good. But they didn't go for it. But I have it on record now that you thought, and you're smart, and you thought that too.
I have two last questions that we always end on. First one is, can you name someone who is changing the entertainment industry for the better?
I think young people with visions and people of color and the Asian representation, you know, this isn't about, we only want to see one type of minority or one type of person. I think the more that we make other people's stories accessible, queer, Black, brown, Jewish, Asian, whatever, the less of a commodity is, and the commodity is, and more normalized it becomes, and the less of an issue. And I don't know if we'll see that in our lifetime, but I think getting to peek into other people's narratives and lives and seeing yourself or someone who's nothing like you but reminds you of yourself, I think is very powerful. And women are doing that, and getting to see women just being normal versus just the girlfriend or be unlikable, which is so fun, you know?
Our final question is a deep one. You could take it in a lighter direction if you prefer. What is the biggest fear you've ever had that you've actually managed to overcome?
I don't think I've overcome it. I think my greatest fear, I know I should give like a funny answer, is not being seen. And I think that's what, I think visibility drives a lot of people and a lot of reasons for that, but not being seen and heard, whether it's in a relationship or your integrity in your art or something you're creating. You know, oftentimes I feel like I'm doing things in a vacuum, and then someone reminds you like, we saw that, it mattered. So I think that is a fear that also drives me. So I think if I ever lost that fear, I think I'd lose a part of my drive. So I can reckon with it, but I don't think I'll ever beat it.
I hear you on that. And thank you for sharing that, because maybe someone else out there watching this show feels the same way, and hearing someone they admire say that will make them feel differently about it.
Definitely.
I got to let you go. Huge thank you for spending some time with us on Collider Ladies Night. For everybody out there, good on paper. It's on Netflix right now. Trust me, you want to watch this movie. Trust me, watch it. Thank you so much for your time, Iliza. And congrats.
Thank you. Thank you so much for such a thoughtful interview, Perry. This was great.